Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an attendee in listen-only mode. Please sure to understand the Quran. So, the Quran is one of the two sources form the basis of Islam. As we all know, that the second source is the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, what makes the Quran different from the Sunnah is its form, its primary form. Unlike the Sunnah, the Quran is literally the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas the Sunnah was inspired by Allah, but the words and actions are the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah? Now, the Quran has not been expressed using any human's words. So we have to understand, my dear sister, this is divine. Every letter of the Quran is divine, and its wording, letter by letter, is fixed only by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are getting this brilliant opportunity. Now, we want to explain to our attendees that, before we come to understanding the journey of the Quran, we should grasp at the very outset what are we trying to achieve, inshallah. Yeah? So there are certain things that needs to be clear, and there are certain questions that comes in the common mind of the reader during the study of the Quran. So inshallah, we are going to look at it. When we board on the study of the Quran, we expect that this book, like any other book, we feel that this book will also have a definite subject, and then that the subject matter of the book too will be very well defined, and there will be an index in which it will be divided into different sections, different chapters, and the discussion will sequence. But we notice that when we open the Quran, it displays, it's very different. On the same page, you will find guidelines of belief, conduct, moral directives, legal prescriptions, encouragements, admonitions, disapprovals, condemnations of evildoers, warning to the deniers of the truth. And you say, oh my God, what's happening? In one page, there are so many different things. So my dear sisters, we need to get ourselves familiarized with the Quran. So what is the subject of the Quran? The subject of Quran is nothing other than you and me. That is man. It discusses the aspects of our life which we discuss our failures. What is the central theme of the Quran? The central theme, the entire humanity is running behind the truth. They want to know what is the ultimate truth. So the central theme of the Quran is exposes. It is the exposition of the reality. It is invitation to mankind. And what is the aim and objective of the Quran? To invite man to the right way and to present clear guidance which he has lost because of his negligence or has perverted by his wickedness. So we have lost our way, and the Quran is inviting us to its way. So before we go to the journey of the Quran, we all need to understand the background. One cannot fully understand the topics that are discussed in the Quran unless we know the background of its revelations, what was the social, historical, political situation of that time. So as we take this journey, we will understand there are two types of surahs in the Quran, that is chapters, and they are either the Meccan or the Madani. So what are the Meccan surahs? It is nothing that the surahs revealed in Mecca or Meccan, or the ones which are revealed in Medina are Madani surahs, but any revelation that came to the Prophet ﷺ before the migration to Medina are called the Meccan surahs, and the revelation surahs of the Prophet ﷺ stayed for 13 years. So we find a huge number of surahs that are Meccan, and we can also see the difference in the content of the Meccan and the Madani surah. Then we also know that it is always good to know that the Meccan period also consisted of 4 different periods. That is the first stage when the Dawah of Islam, it was carried on for 3 years. Only very few people knew about it, and it was like a secret or a silent Dawah. Then the second stage from the 4th year, and it got made public. At this stage, people were starting to ridicule and mock the invitation to Islam. Then the third stage which lasted up to 10th year, in which the ridicule and the mocking, it changed its face and it became into persecution and strong opposition. And in that period, the believers were told to migrate to Abyssinia. And the fourth stage is the very strong opposition, where the plans for migration and the Quraysh were planning to kill the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that is Meccan Surah. And then we have Madani Surahs. Madani Surah, Madani Quran is the Quran which was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam after he migrated to Medina. We see that in the Madani Quran, the Quran will be addressing the Jews, the Christians, the hypocrites, as well as instructions for establishing Islamic way of life. We also need to know that there are 114 surahs in the Quran, and each surah it has its name as well. And now we need to see that how was this book revealed? Yeah, we all know, and how was it compiled? The revelation of the compilation of the Quran is different to the order in which it was revealed. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he compiled the Quran. You know, as we know that the first surah to be revealed was Surah Iqra bismi, but we see when it is in the Quran, it is a different number of chapters. It is not placed first in the Quran. So the compilation and the revelation were two different things, but we need to understand that the compilation of the Quran was also done by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the entire Quran was committed to the memories of majority of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was also written down on leaves of date trees, barks of tree, and bones. The Quran, which is now in our use, is the exact copy of the Quran compiled by the order of Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and copies of which were officially sent to different places by Hazrat Osman radiallahu anhu. And we also need to know that about the protection of the Quran, Allah says about the Quran in the Quran that there is no doubt in this book. Allah has taken the responsibility to explain this book, and Allah says He has revealed the Quran and He will protect it. So Allah has taken that big burden off our shoulders. Now, my dear sisters, we are going to see as to what is going to be our approach. There are many approaches to studying and understanding the Quran, like detailed tafsir, thematic studies, or analyzing different subjects in the Quran. However, this Ramadan, we will be presenting a very short, a very brief overview of the entire Quran, which will enable to create an urge in our attendees to dedicate more time to take detailed study in the future, inshallah, which will eventually help us to fulfill the rights of the Quran. Now, we have taken this realistic approach, my dear sisters, keeping in mind our current situation where free time and peace of mind can be trickier. So in the presence of the entire family, to find time for ourselves is going to be difficult. So that is why we have just kept 90-minute sessions, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday from 4:30 to 6 p.m. So we request you all to log in on time. And my dear sisters, if Allah has given you this opportunity, please take notes for the session. We will take you through the central theme of every surah, and you will all be given an ayah of the day at the end of each session. That would be like a little homework to help you ponder and reflect for ourselves. What have we learned today? We have a line of speakers for you, mashallah, young sisters who would be coming up and who would be explaining and taking you through this short journey of the Quran, inshallah. I'm sorry that it is not going to be an interactive session. However, we encourage our audience that we are giving them opportunity to give feedbacks through our feedback forms and on WhatsApp groups as well. And I would like to conclude my dear sisters by glad tidings and warning which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself has given in the Quran. My dear sisters, we have got this opportunity now. I want to see what we want to do with this opportunity. The one ayah is وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. And we have certainly made the Quran easy for remembrance. So is there any who will remember? So my dear sister, we want to be into this category. Yes, Allah is telling us the Quran is easy. So we want to be the ones who come to the Quran. And there is the ayah of warning in which in Surah Al-Furqan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ يَا رَبِّ إِنَّ قَوْمِ اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَحْجُورًا. And the messenger will say, "Oh my Lord, verily my people deserted this Quran, neither listened to it nor acted on its laws and orders." So my dear sisters, I'm sure that we do not want to be from among them. Now, in the light of these two ayahs, we come to our objective. Now, what is the objective of the UKIM sisters? To hold the entire summary of the Quran. It is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ كِتَابًا فِيهِ ذِكْرِكُمْ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. We have bestowed upon you a book that mentions you. Do you not understand? The Quran discusses you and me, my problem, your problem, our affairs of life. It describes our own nature, origin and end. It discriminates between good and evil and presents high moral qualities which our own conscience approves of and confirms. So let's rediscover ourselves, my dear sisters, through the summary of the Quran and reflect our relationship with this divine book. So our objective is that we want to rediscover ourselves in the Quran and we want to establish a relationship with this divine book. We ask you all, my dear sisters, to pray and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us in keeping our intentions right, making easy for all of us to join the sessions, and special prayers, my dear sisters. We ask from you for our speakers to enable them to deliver the divine message. And we ask du'as from all of you for our technical support team and the team who has put this planning in place, that Allah removes all hurdles and obstacles and helps us to do this task smoothly and efficiently. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakum Allah khair.
MashaAllah, Nasreen, that was a very precise yet comprehensive. You touched all those points which needed to be reminded. Alhamdulillah, and may Allah fulfill all the du'as. And may we go through this month without any technical problems, and we all enjoy it as well, inshallah. I should not spend any more time talking myself. We need to start work now. I would like today's speaker, Sister Summer Haq. Summer lives in London and she's a school teacher. She has been a UKIM volunteer since a very young age. And at present, she is one of the leading volunteers in UKIM autism project in East London. Summer, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see your screen as well.
Excellent. Okay, bismillah. Jazakallah khair, Sabanti. Yes, alhamdulillah, my name is Summer. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, everybody, and welcome to the summary of the Quran. I take great privilege in starting the divine message and the journey of the Quran with you all. May Allah make it easy for all of us to understand. May Allah open our hearts to His guidance and His protection while we are studying it. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani. So I'm going to start off. We are starting today's aims and objectives are going to be Surah Fatiha and part of Surah Baqarah. Of course, Surah Baqarah is a very lengthy surah. Unfortunately, that will not be covered in about the next hour. So inshallah, that will lead on to tomorrow. So you'll be hearing from me tomorrow as well, inshallah. So let's begin then. So, like Assistant Nasreen just previously mentioned, that the revelation are divided into the categories in relation to the Seerah. This is just a small diagram, perhaps to put that into a bit more perspective. I'll be referring to this diagram throughout my session, inshallah. Now, I want to focus on this quotation that Ali radiallahu anhu said, and he said, "We have no special or secret knowledge of the Quran except the understanding of the Quran that Allah gives, that Allah gives to a person." And this is very profound. This is also referred to in Surah Baqarah, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. And someone like Ali radiallahu anhu, who is a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself is saying that they haven't got any inside details or any, secret knowledge of the Quran. Rather, it is how the guidance that Allah gives to a person that determines the understanding that we receive. So the purpose of this is so that we open our hearts to the Quran, that we come with a fresh mind, a fresh perspective every single time we read the Quran. Otherwise, the Quran to us will just be a load of facts and figures and stories. So we need to, we have to understand that guidance is from Allah. Allah gives us this understanding. So similarly, just as Sister Nasreen said, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this. The structure of the Quran, we've spoken about this as well. So let's dive right in with Surah Fatiha, which is the opening surah. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now, the period of revelation with Surah Fatiha was the Makkan period. So this was in the first 3 years of prophethood. And unlike many surahs that were revealed in parts, Surah Fatiha was one of the surahs that was, or the first surah, which was revealed as a whole. So it came down in its entirety. And it was revealed during the period of secret revelation, which is the first 3 years since the Prophet ﷺ gained prophethood. Now, the characteristics, some of the benefits and virtues of Surah Fatiha are such that it is Fatihul Kitab, which is defined as the opening of the book. Al-Kitab, the mother of the book. Sab'a Mathani, the 7 repeated. We know that we recite this in our salah 5 times a day. More than that, possibly, it is a dua in itself. And we also know that we should say Ameen after its recitation. There are multiple other benefits of reciting Surah Fatiha. I don't want to delve in too much to that, but these are some, but not limited to, the characteristics of Surah Fatiha. Now, the surah, like as we were talking about in terms of our structure, there is a central theme for this surah, and the central theme is a request for guidance to the straight path. And we're going to unpack Surah Fatiha to really understand what this surah is trying to tell us. And it is also it is a dua. The whole surah in itself is the actual dua. So let's start with the first 4 ayahs, where we are looking at, what is quite interesting, we're looking at the etiquette of praying praise in liaison with Allah's beautiful attributes. And we see that the first 4 ayahs, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin. Okay? Well, that comes a bit later. But yeah, so you've got the first 4 ayahs of Surah Fatiha. Now, I wanted to kind of describe this as, if your child comes up to you and they want something from you, will most likely, especially maybe the older lot, will always come and kind of, they'll tell you how wonderful you are, Mom, you look beautiful today, or you cook the best food, you're so nice to me. What is that child doing? They're trying to praise the mother before asking them for something. And that's very similar to our approach to when we are about to ask Allah for something that we want. And generally, the etiquette of dua is that we start off by praising Allah and we emphasize His beautiful name. Okay? So we are submitting ourselves to Allah's compassion, His mercifulness, and His sovereignty, and that we are accepting them. Okay. So we begin reciting the Quran with Allah's name. Now, the next part is we're looking at prayer. Now, we are saying, you alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. So, this is still part of the praise. We are still telling Allah that we only want to ask you for help. We don't want anyone else's help. We just want your help alone. We only worship you. And the purpose of this is that we are completely entrusting our affairs to Him. We are acknowledging that we can only rely on Allah, and we can only trust Allah, and we can only rely on Him for our help. Now, you would not ask somebody unreliable to ask for their help, right? You would always ask one of your friends or someone that you really think is reliable. You would go to them. And this is the same relationship that we're having with Allah. We are going to Him because we rely on Him, and we acknowledge that we rely on Him. Now, the first six, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, guide us to the straight path, guide us to the right way. This is the dua that we are asking. The dua that we are doing is we are asking the dua for guidance. So just as we spoke about earlier, we open the Quran, the first thing that we are doing is we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance. Now, guidance is separated in three, it's sort of allocated in three ways. Guidance is a very broad term. So we are asking Allah to show us, to direct us, and to grant us success. Okay, so when we say we want Allah's guidance, we want Allah to give us the knowledge, which is the direction. We are asking Allah to tell us which direction to follow, and therefore what actions do we need to do in order for Allah to grant us this success. Okay, so I want to use the example of a teacher over here, is when a student asks you for help, you are not going to suddenly just say, yep, you need to get an A at your GCSE. Rather, you are going to model concepts. You're going to show them the syllabus. You're going to show them the path they need to take in order to achieve that grade. Okay, and this is what the student will expect from us. They will expect us to show them, direct them to model a concept, and what is the success criteria. So this is exactly what Allah is going to give us throughout the Quran. So when we ask Allah for guidance, we are asking Him for these three things. And in essence, the Quran tells us about the knowledge, about which direction to follow, and what we need to do to be granted success. Finally, as with everything, once the teacher has told the students that this is your success criteria, there are also consequences. If you do not get this grade, this will happen, so on and so forth. And that is the last verse of Surah Fatiha. So here Allah is telling us that we do not want to follow the path of those that is not favored, and we do not want to earn Allah's anger. So the previous ayah shows what Allah is expecting from us upon receiving the guidance, and the last ayah describes what Allah does not want from us. Okay, so here we have the positives, and now we've got the consequences. As with anything really in our daily life, we are always given the outcome. Okay, if you're good, if you get your grades, this is what will happen, and if you don't, well then here's the outcome. In a nutshell, what Surah Fatiha is telling us is that guidance and help is only from Allah, and most importantly, if we ask for it. There is no point of reciting Surah Fatiha from the tip of our tongues if we are not sincere that we are not looking for Allah's guidance. And secondly, the entire Quran is the answer to Surah Fatiha. We're going to see this in Surah Baqarah, in fact, very early on, that we've asked for Allah, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, Allah reveals the entire Quran to us. And that is the beauty of the Quran. We make one dua and Allah gives us an entire Quran to show us guidance, show us direction, give us knowledge, and what happens when we are given that, if we are successful, or what happens if we are unsuccessful. So that is Surah Fatiha in a nutshell, I would like to say. Okay, now let's move on, inshallah, to Surah Baqarah. Now, Surah Baqarah is the longest surah in the Quran. It is 286 ayahs, so that's almost over 2.5 juz. And Surah Baqarah was revealed, is a Madini surah, so it was revealed in Medina. And what's interesting about Surah Baqarah is that it is very heavy on rules and regulations, and we can almost understand why. Now, Islam was being established in the first 13 years in Mecca. Okay. Then when they migrated to Medina, this is where they were now settling down. They were beginning to experience Islam as a lifestyle. They were beginning to encounter situations where they needed further guidance, they needed further sort of rules, they needed a bit more emphasis on how we can implement Islam in our daily life. And this is and this is where we have Surah Baqarah, and that is why a lot of what Surah Baqarah entails is going to be about the rules, the regulations, and we'll see inshallah that there are lots of laws that are also mentioned in the surah. So let's begin inshallah. So in Surah Fatiha, let's talk about the connection between Surah Fatiha and Surah Baqarah. So in Surah Fatiha, we sought refuge from those who incur Allah's wrath. And in Surah Baqarah, Allah gives us examples of nations who did incur His wrath. Okay, so we wanted in the last ayah, we said, we don't want to become like people who Allah was angry with. And now Surah Baqarah will tell us, well, Allah says to us, well, okay, that's what you wanted to know what happens to those who did not want to accept the message. I am going to give you a list of examples of people who did not and what happened to them. And we'll see in a few moments' time that we'll talk about these nations. And I just mentioned also that in Surah Fatiha we said Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, and in the second ayah of Surah Baqarah Allah says ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of Allah. So immediately Allah is immediately answering our dua. Now we're going to talk about Surah Baqarah by splitting into 4 areas, just to kind of help us understand what's happening where. It's a lengthy surah. Sometimes it's very difficult to separate bit from bit. Like Sister Nasreen earlier did say that there's a lot of interchanging things that happen in the Quran as well. We want to try and make this simple and easy to understand so that you can engage with it. So first things first, the overall rising theme of Surah Baqarah is leadership. Okay, so we're going to constantly come back to this idea of leadership. Okay, the first 40 odd ayahs, verses 1 to 39, is an introduction. The second set of verses, so we're looking at 40 to 141, we're talking about the fall of the Jews. The third set of verses, we're talking about Muslim leadership and law. And finally, we've got a conclusion in the last couple of verses. Today, inshallah, in the next hour, we are going to be looking at the introduction and the fall of the Jews. Inshallah, if time permits, we'll finish fall of the Jews today. And then tomorrow we'll look at the remaining 2, which is a nice split in my opinion. So, let's start with verses 1 to 39, our introduction. Okay, so these verses discuss the implementation of the attitude of belief from 3 attitudes regarding the position of leadership and tawheed. So what this means is we are going to be studying 3 types of people, 3 attitudes regarding the position of leadership, about what it means or how we can implement the three types of people that Allah is describing and how they relate to the oneness of Allah. Okay? So let's start. Now, as you can see, I've got a table here. There is going to be a lot of information. Please bear in mind that I am not going to be elaborating on every single bunch of ayahs. Okay, so here's ayahs 1 to 39 on your table. I will be presenting them to you so that you have a record of what each category of ayahs are talking about. This does not mean that I will be going into depth with them. I'm going to be elaborating on certain aspects. Otherwise, we'll be here all day today and all day tomorrow if I was to continue giving you the steer of every single ayah. And this will be my structure throughout. So, in Surah Baqarah, Allah starts off by talking about, from ayahs 1 to 20 roughly, Allah talks that there are only 3 types of people. Okay? And the first type of people that has been described in Surah Baqarah are the believers. Okay? And the list that you can see in front of you, the believers have belief in the unseen, they pray, they give charity, they believe in the Quran and life after death. Okay? Now, when we are looking at believing in the unseen, here we are specifically talking about things that our mind can't comprehend. Okay? And we should not necessarily question. We believe it because Allah has told us to believe it. Okay? And this list here is the submission to Allah. So immediately, as soon as we come to the characteristics of the believers, there is this submission to Allah that we believe in these things because Allah tells us to believe in them. Okay? Now, the second set of ayahs, we are looking at Allah tells us about the characteristics of this disbelievers are of two types. They're obstinate, and they are those whose hearts are denied invitation. Okay, denied invitation of the divine law of Allah's word. And one thing I want to stress here is that Allah it doesn't suddenly stand up and say, I'm going to put a seal on this person's heart because they have sinned too much. That's not what Allah does. Allah is merciful, He gives us opportunities for forgiveness. However, what Allah is telling us here is that Allah does not put a seal unless a person shows with their actions and intentions that they are no longer interested in the deen. And they constantly and continuously sin. And they sin with the intention that, oh, Allah will forgive me, Allah will forgive me, I'll sin again, Allah will forgive me again, oh, I will sin, Allah will forgive me. And they keep sinning continuously and continuously and continuously. And this shows to Allah that they are no longer interested in the deen. Allah gives many, many chances. Okay? And this is why He's Al-Ghafur, and this is why, He's the most forgiving. But there comes to a point where they have gone so astray, they have gone so far, that Allah then seals their hearts. And that is the characteristic of a disbeliever. And the third type of people that Allah describes are those hypocrites. Okay? Now there are two types. The first type of hypocrite is one who completely disagrees in their heart. Like from the offset, they are just like, nope, they're not. I don't want to believe. Although from the surface, a hypocrite is someone who shows outwardly that they believe, but inwardly they do not. So this type of hypocrite, one type of hypocrite is one who is from their heart, they are absolutely like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with this religion. The second type of hypocrite is one who actually probably does believe, but only uses their belief for their advantage. So whether it be to show to people that they are fantastic at their, dawah, or they want praise from people, okay? So there's two types of hypocrites. And now what's really interesting is that let's bring some context into this. Now, when the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, Allah, everyone in the eyes of the people that had migrated, you are either a believer or a disbeliever. What's interesting about the hypocrites is that up until now, when this ayah was revealed, and look at the way in which Allah exposes them. Can you just imagine, just think about it, imagine what it feels like when all of a sudden there's an ayah that's been revealed, and imagine, God forbid, for the sake of the argument, imagine that you are a hypocrite, and this ayah has been revealed, and the dialogue that you're having, that, oh my gosh, all of a sudden everyone knows that there are this third group of people around who say outwardly and they look as though they're believers, but actually they're not. Okay? And this is why later we will talk about the hypocrites later as well, inshallah, where we see the type of people that they really, really were. Okay? And then what Allah does is He invites invitation. He then, after describing these three types of people, He set the scene here. He's described this: you are either believer, disbeliever, or hypocrite in Allah's eyes, and you'll be judged according to those three. And then we are looking at the invitation. Then Allah is like, okay, now that we've dealt with these three people, I've told you what type of three people there are in this world. Now I'm going to invite you to the oneness of Allah, to my message. And Allah, firstly, He uses examples of His creation. Okay? He talks about these sorts of descriptions. He talks about the sky, the Quran as a miracle, so on and so forth. Now, what's interesting here in particular is that those who believe in these signs, who believe in Allah, these signs will make their iman stronger. They will ponder and think, yes, so this message is true. But the same ayah will make those who don't believe go more astray. So subhanAllah, the same ayah about a mosquito may make someone's iman stronger, but it can also make someone go astray as well. And this is all to do with guidance. So if you open the Quran for guidance, the ayah about the mosquito, for example, will make that person's iman stronger. But for someone who just wants a list of facts and figures, this will mean nothing to them. And in fact, they may go astray further. Okay, so the same ayah can have a different effect on one's heart. Okay? Now, The next thing that we are talking about is this is the first time Allah addresses the story of the first man, Adam and Hawa, or the first man and first woman, Adam and Hawa, okay? What I want to focus on here is not the story itself. Everyone, inshallah, knows about what happened. But what's important is that Allah gave Adam alayhi salam two things that He did not give any of His other creation. The first thing was knowledge, and the second thing was choice. And this is what made Adam alayhi salam superior to the angels and jinns, because of this knowledge and choice that Allah gave him. And therefore, we can question, we can ponder, why did Iblis not bow down when Allah asked everyone to bow down to Adam and Hawa? Because Iblis thought he knew better. Iblis thought he had better knowledge than Adam and Hawa, okay? And this is a lesson for us. This means that we might not be, or we might not be better than the person sitting next to us. Therefore, we cannot show arrogance in our attitude. Allah has given knowledge to some people. Like, for example, when we read later in the Quran, Allah gave wisdom and knowledge to Khidr that He did not give to Musa alayhi salam. And this is a story, inshallah, that you will learn in Surah Taha. Okay? But He did not give it to Musa, although Musa alayhi salam was a prophet of Allah. So Allah picks and He chooses who to give knowledge to, but we ask for the knowledge through the dua of guidance. Okay? And the second thing that we need to learn from Adam and Hawa's story is that there is, again, we have two types of people. We have Adam and Hawa who made a mistake by eating a fruit, and they felt very sorry. They felt very, very guilty upon doing that. And they made dua for forgiveness. Okay? However, Shaitan, when he did not listen to Allah, what happened to him? He became more arrogant. Oh, what this means is that arrogance will not help us. And rather, Allah raises our ranks when we repent. So, and finally, Allah talks about in Ayah 39 the description of the outcome of those who believe and disbelieve. Okay? So, if one follows guidance, of course they will go to Jannah, and if you don't, they will be punished. And that concludes the introduction. Okay, so there's a lot of things that have been discussed here. We're talking about the characteristics of the type of people, an invitation to Islam, the story of the first man, and the lessons we can learn from it. And of course, if you are a believer, this is the outcome. If you're a disbeliever, this is the outcome. Okay? So that nicely encapsulates the introduction to Surah Baqarah. So how is this linked to leadership? So there are three groups of people: the believers, the disbelievers, and the hypocrites. And in order to understand one's responsibility as a leader, we need to follow the oneness of Allah, which is what Allah has called us to, which is Tawheed. We need to avoid Shaitan, what we learned in Adam alayhi salam's story, to join the believers, and therefore enter paradise. Okay? Now, let's move on now, inshallah, to the second part. Verses 40 to 141, nearly 100 ayahs, inshallah. We are going to get through this, inshallah. I am confident that we will. Now, the next section of Surah Baqarah is it's interesting, but it's a huge eye-opener. A very, very big eye-opener. And we must all take heed from this. These verses are a point for our reflection, because we will slowly start seeing a lot of ourselves reflected in these ayahs, which is where the scary bit comes into. Now, what we need to understand is that when we talk about the fall of the Jews, we are looking at the reasons why the Bani Israel were unsuccessful. And they fell from a very esteemed position of leadership. Okay? And this is what is scary, because we need to constantly assess ourselves. Are we showing qualities of these people? So Allah was going to give us examples at the start of Surah Baqarah about nations, in the end of Surah Fatiha, about nations that did not believe. This is one of the biggest examples that Allah has mentioned throughout the Quran. Throughout. You're going to hear it today, tomorrow, in fact, for the whole week, we'll be talking about Bani Israel. Okay? Now, just a bit of background about Bani Israel. Bani Israel are the lineage or the progeny of Yaqub alayhi salam, okay? And Israel was a title given to Yaqub alayhi salam, okay? And along this lineage, Allah sent so many prophets to the lineage. Allah sent many, many prophets, okay? And eventually what happened is that they thought they were entitled. Okay, so that's a very quick background to Bani Israel. They eventually thought that they were entitled to all the privileges of Allah, and we're going to be looking at those privileges in this section, inshallah. Now, let's start with the first thing that Allah talks about. Okay, so here Allah starts off with an invitation of Islam to Bani Israel. Okay, and what we have is, and I'm going to put all of this here so you can read this. I'm not going to go eye by eye. Like I said, I was going to present it to you, and then we're going to talk about these individually, things that I think, or things that we can learn from. Okay? So I'm going to actually start talking about the favors given to Bani Israel. Because Bani Israel were a nation that was given a lot of privileges. Okay? Allah gave them so many prophets for reminders. Okay, Allah also gave them messengers who tried to convince them that this is the right way. But let's see what happened. Let's see what happened when Bani Israel were given all these fantastic and amazing things and these miracles, and let's see what went wrong. Okay, so the first thing that Allah talks about is that Allah gave them refuge from Fir'aun. Now, inshallah, later on, we're going to be talking about, you'll listen to the story of what happened with the Pharaoh. Very quickly, there was a tyrant in the land, and Pharaoh was going to, he was a very, very evil man, and these people were under the leadership of Musa alayhi salam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Bani Israel refuge from the Pharaoh. Okay? And once they got into safety after that, what do? They started worshipping a calf. So they just saw an amazing miracle that Allah gave them refuge from the Pharaoh. This is where the splitting of the sea incident happened. And they saw that miracle. As soon as they got to the other side, they started worshipping a calf. Okay? Example number one. Second one, another favor. Allah gave them the Torah. Allah gave them their holy book. And they mocked it. They said that, they denied it. They started mocking it, they started refuting it, they started distorting it. Okay? Then another favor. Bani Israel asked Musa alayhi salam for food. They asked Musa alayhi salam for Allah to send them food. And Allah sent these people manna and quail. This is a food from Jannah. Okay? And they complained about it. He said they didn't, they were making excuses. They didn't want it. They complained. Okay? Another example. Allah gave Musa alayhi salam, Bani Israel, an order to slaughter a cow. This was an order. Okay? Allah said for them to slaughter a cow. And what did Bani Israel do? They mocked Allah's orders. And they started asking irrelevant questions like, what color does it have to be? How big does it have to be? Is it male or is it female? They started going off tangents. They were being persistent in their disbelief. They were being persistent in their mockery as well. Okay? They fabricated the verses of the Torah. So they took what they wanted to and they disregarded everything that they didn't want to. And they rejected it. They just said, no, this doesn't apply to us, so we shouldn't believe in it. Now, I want you to stop and think at this moment here. Do we fall under any of those categories? Because, frankly speaking, I think we do. How many times have you opened the Quran and just kind of, or read a tafsir and you thought, no, this can't be for us. This is for those who are really, really righteous, and we're not at that level of righteousness at the moment. How many times have you had food sent to you out of hunger, and you've complained about it? How many times has perhaps Allah accepted your dua of something that you really want, and the next minute you start doing that which displeases Allah? So these are really moments for us to think about. This was a nation, sisters, that Allah, this is a nation that Allah does not favor. These are not good. These are the qualities of Bani Israel are described. They're described as a fallen nation. And God forbid we follow into that trap. God forbid that we will slowly start following into those in their footsteps, because sometimes in our actions it seems like that. You know, every time Bani Israel disobeyed Allah, Allah forgave them and gave them something better. But how many chances does one need to change? And Bani Israel abused all the chances. So what we need to learn is when Allah grants something in our life, we need to be thankful. From the smallest drop of water to the biggest favors Allah has given us. We have to be thankful. And it's difficult, especially in our time, at the moment, in our current crisis, it is very difficult to be thankful. Extremely difficult, because you just think, well, why? Why is this happening? But remember, that was a thought of Bani Israel. Bani Israel is to question why, and not why in an inquisitive way, why in a mocking way, in a way which was demoralizing, in a way that mocked Allah's son. Now, moving on to the next set of ayahs. Now, what Bani Israel thought was that because of all these favors Allah was bestowing on them, they thought it was a good thing. They thought it was like, yes, Allah loves us so much. This is why He is giving us all these things. And because of that, they thought they were the chosen people. So Bani Israel thought that they could get away with anything. Okay? And because of that, they thought that Allah loves them, and they thought that, okay, you know what, I will only go to hell for a few days. And that Jannah is their racial privilege. Because they came from a lineage of these, where all these prophets were sent to them, there was this element of arrogance, and you could almost argue racism, that they thought that they were better because of who they were, because they were from this lineage. And again, think of yourselves, think of ourselves, think of where we come from. Do we have racial privilege? Maybe. In some cultures, perhaps. The next thing that Allah does with Bani Israel, or the next thing that happens, is that Allah makes a promise with Bani Israel. Allah is infuriated, Allah is very stern, because they have had lots and lots of chances at this point. And the list that you see in front of you are the covenant or the promise that Allah takes from these people. And under the pressure of Allah's firmness, they suddenly said, yes, you know, we'll do all of these things. But then what happened? A moment later, under that pressure, they said, yes. And then all of a sudden, they started going towards disobedience again. Okay? They didn't follow the covenant towards Allah. They broke that promise. Okay, so can you imagine breaking a promise with Allah? Can you imagine the amount of... Can you imagine the extremity of that? You're breaking a promise that Allah has given, Allah has taken a pledge, and you've broken it. And some of the examples of this is that Bani Israel stooped so low. At this point, because of their racial privilege, they stooped so low that what do they start doing? They started banishing people and gave them citizenship after taking money from them, which is, is almost foolishness. And secondly, what they did was that they resorted to magic. Okay, and why did they use magic? They used magic to split marriages. And the reason they targeted marriages was so that the essential unit in the community is broken. And that way the community cannot flourish. So they targeted the essential unit in the society, which was husband and wife. They started using magic to distance husband and wife from each other. So that afterwards, the society can't grow, the society can't flourish, and that there is fitna in the community. Okay, so this is how low they got. This is how almost you could argue pathetic that they had become. So that's what they started doing, because they couldn't handle the fact that they couldn't handle the fact that they were stooping so low, that all these privileges were slowly being taken away from them. Now, so again, we're coming to this idea that we've spoken about this as well. Now, what is another interesting factor about Bani Israel, and we'll actually tie this towards the end of Surah Baqarah, is that Bani Israel knew. Bani Israel knew that they were disobeying. And they also knew that Prophet Muhammad was the last messenger. They knew this. But they clearly stated that we have disobeyed. And this is almost like a mockery, right? It's a bit like when someone is telling you something good and you laugh at it and you just think, yeah, I hear you, but I'm not going to listen to you. You say that in a mocking way, and this is what Bani Israel were doing. And this is the divine message of Allah. Okay? They were just greedy for the worldly life. That's what they wanted. They just wanted this worldly life. They wanted to cause corruption eventually. And they also, straight out, they rejected Jibreel alayhi salam. And at this point, when they rejected Jibreel alayhi salam, like, you know what? No. This is enough now. You have crossed a line. And from then on, it was downhill for them. Okay, so you can see that when we're coming back to this idea of Allah sealing hearts, look at Bani Israel. Allah did not suddenly, in the first instance, Allah did not seal their hearts. He gave them chances. He gave them many, many chances. We just talked about all the examples, but it was at this point now where Allah said, enough is enough. Okay, and now then Allah seals their hearts. Moving on now. So, after this now, what Allah does, what Allah talks about is, sorry, let me just have a quick read. Yes, so just one more point here is that, let's come back to the idea of racial privilege. Allah in the Quran, in ayahs 110 to 115, Allah actually refutes this idea, and He clarifies in that moment that it doesn't matter what racial status you're with. It does not matter that you are a Jew or a Christian or an Arab. Racial status will not gain anyone's success. Okay, and He says that there and then, and it is your deeds that will grant success. So Allah is coming back to the idea of what is in your heart and your intention. Now, Allah at this point now, and from ayah 116, Allah now starts talking, He brings in the Christians into the conversation now. And this is an important point because I've heard a few people perhaps maybe not misuse this, but it's always been a slightly, I won't say it's disputed. There's something that I think I should bring to light. And Allah in the Quran has factually told us that the Jews and the Christians will never be our true friends. Now, this sort of friendship, we're not talking about your neighbor, we're not talking about someone you've met at university or school or at work. We're not talking about their personality. There are a number of very, very good and very soft-hearted and very polite and very friendly Jews and Christians who are our friends, and that is fine. We have a duty towards being good to people, and that is fine. But what Allah is emphasizing here is because of the difference in our religions and the difference in our belief, the Jews and the Christians will always have something in their hearts against us from a religious perspective. Okay? And that is the difference between us being friends with them on a day-to-day basis and really kind of delving deep, that Jews and Christians, there will always be something there that won't fit right. And this is not something I'm telling you, this is what Allah has said. And we have been told that this is a fact, that the Jews and Christians will never be our true friends. They will always have something in our heart against us. And this stems from this whole idea that they fell as a nation. And therefore, ultimately, and as a result of that, the Jews and Christians, although they know, a lot of the Jews and Christians, even now, they might know that, yes, Prophet Muhammad was the last messenger, and we acknowledge that. But this sort of, you could say, this conflict remains. And ultimately, the Jews and Christians are afraid of the punishment of the judgment. They know it's coming. They know about it. but it is their arrogance which prevents them from accepting and admitting. Now, let's have a look here. Now, this is going to be a slightly longer discussion now, and we are looking at now the last section of these ayat. Allah is and the shift focuses to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and we learn about Allah tells us now, and He invites us to follow the course of the Jews and the Christians. In this regard, the Jews and Christians, they are refusing to believe in the direct message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously as a divine law of Allah. But he's encouraging them, he's inviting them. Okay, go back further. Do you not believe in the scriptures sent to Ibrahim? And just a small tangent here. Let's talk a bit about Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim alayhi salam was a Hanif. And what that means is he was a neutral man. He did not engage in the idol worship of his community. In fact, many of us may know that Ibrahim alayhi salam's father, he was someone who used to make idols. And he used to sell them as well. And he was very prominent in the community for his idol worshipping. And he was you could say Ibrahim alayhi salam's father was a popular man in this community for this purpose. And so Ibrahim alayhi salam from the very offset was born into you could almost argue, a challenging family, because Ibrahim alayhi salam did not really necessarily, he did not believe in what his father was saying. And we'll learn later about the conversations between Ibrahim alayhi salam and his father. And Ibrahim alayhi salam was tested, and he was tested a lot. And we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested Ibrahim alayhi salam with the situation of the shaitan, of sacrificing his son, of leaving his wife and his son in the deserted plains of Makkah. So Ibrahim alayhi salam out of the fire is another one as well. So Allah really tested Ibrahim alayhi salam with a lot of situations. And as a result of this, Ibrahim alayhi salam's responses to those tests earned him to be the leader of the title given to him. Okay, so because he had endured so much, because Allah really polished him, he had polished him through these different trials and tribulations, that he was given this title. So he was a leader. Allah gave him the position of a leader. Now, what did Ibrahim alayhi salam say immediately? Ibrahim alayhi salam's immediate response was about his lineage and the generations to come after him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Ibrahim alayhi salam the title of a leader. Ibrahim alayhi salam is now known as a leader, and he asked immediately about his lineage. What's going to happen to the people that come after us? What's going to happen to my lineage? That was his thinking. He did not think about his own leaders. He did not become selfish. Think about what we are faced with in today's society. As soon as you get a position of leadership, our ego flies through the roof. That's what happens. Ibrahim alayhi salam here immediately talks about his lineage. What's going to happen to those after me? Who will you make prophet after me? Who are the people going to believe after me? And what did Allah say? Allah reassured him that as far as his lineage is concerned and the worldly things are concerned, leave them to Allah. Leadership is a worldly title. It is a test. And what Allah is telling us here, and the lesson we can learn from this, is that Allah gives us and takes away worldly provisions and those opportunities. Ask yourself this. How many times have you asked it? It's true, a lot of people do ask this question. And they say, well, how come a non-believer has got so much in this dunya? How come the privilege with so many things? This does not imply that Allah is happy with them. This does not imply that Allah wants to give them all these favors. Go back to the example of Bani Israel. Allah gave them all these favors. Was Allah happy with them? No. They were a test. So when we find that we do not have what maybe our non-Muslim counterparts have, do not be disheartened. The treasures and the benefits of this life are for Allah to decide. And Allah gives us and takes away opportunities in our worldly, in this life. And of course, inshallah, in the akhirah, the result of our patience will be rewarded. So things like leadership, things like career, things like, you might really want that managerial position at work. These things we put in our efforts, absolutely, but ultimately these are things that Allah has decided. And here Allah is reassuring Ibrahim alayhi salam that the opportunities in this worldly life, Allah will deal with who He makes a prophet after you, Ya Ibrahim. You don't need to worry about that. You just focus on the generation that you are with right now. Don't worry about your lineage. I'll deal with them. I'll make prophets out of whoever I want. And this is very similar to our the lesson that we can learn from us and our leadership, coming back to the central theme of leadership. And as a result of that, Allah also told Ibrahim alayhi salam, or Allah is actually guiding us and telling us that we are answerable to our own actions. If Allah appoints one of us a leader, and this does not mean leader on a national scale, this can even be leadership in our homes. This can be leadership in our society, in our neighborhood. We are answerable to our own actions. Ibrahim alayhi salam's biggest worry was about his lineage because he was worried that if the people ahead of him do not believe, then what's going to happen about Ibrahim alayhi salam? And this is where Allah is reassuring him that actually, yeah, Ibrahim, you don't need to worry about what happens to the people down your progeny, down your lineage. You don't need to worry about that. You will not be questioned about that. You will be questioned about your own people and the people you had a link with. And this is exactly